Hello everyone and welcome back to Rick Plays Kerbal Space Program. Now we've been away from the game for quite some time, and the reason being was we were starting our moon colony project after the release docking enabled different types of vehicles that could actually be played. So you could actually have a base type vehicle or entity that could exist on Moon. We started that project, but there was a lot of shortcomings to how docking worked at the time, especially when you started building large objects and projects like that. Serious frame drops, you'd start getting some spaghetti physics going on, and I just couldn't get it worked around to work, so I kind of dropped the project in the game for a little while. But I'm coming back to it now, after I believe this is 0.21. Because they added a lot of changes. There's a whole new launch center now, as you can see, and they added a building here called the Astronaut Training Center, where you can actually train astronauts and that sort of thing. We also have mission flags and all that, and just stuff like that. So, I kind of want to come back and just do a fresh start here, and we can kind of build up our space program as we go from this. And what we'll do today is just get a very simple rocket made to push a probe into orbit, kind of like a Sputnik type deal. And that'll give you a good handle as to how to get started if you're a new player, and allow us to kind of grow together and see where we really want to take our projects in the future. Now, as I was reading the last blog, this building here is going to be an R&D department, which is going to be pushed out in the next patch, it looks like. So all the parts we have and that sort of thing will have to be researched afterwards. So I don't know if we'll start a new space program at that point or not, but that should be pretty fun, so we'll actually have a growing program. So I'm going to go in here into our, what is this, VAB? I can't even remember. But this is our vertical hangar for building rockets. We'll name this Reknik Mark I. You can add descriptions now. So this will be a simple orbital probe designed to give telemetry and bounce communication. Alright, so we got that. Go with our Sputnik style probe to start. We got our flag in the background there. And what I'll need to do, first of all, go to the utility tab here. I want to add an additional battery. Now these were the old way of doing things. You'd stick these kind of things on the side here, but they actually add some new, besides the larger battery, they added a smaller battery pack. That's a large one. A smaller battery pack, which can sit right here, and I think looks a lot nicer. And this also powers for 200 charge as opposed to one of these. So this is equal to 2 of the radial batteries. So now we have electrical power there, and what I want to do next, I believe, is add these little communitrons, which have no purpose in the game. They're just for aesthetic reasons, to give it a good Sputnik approach. I don't know how I want to do this. Let's do like so, and give it a nice angle. I want to go to my action group button, and I've got these custom keys here, also to numpad controls that correspond with it. So custom 1 will be keypad 1. So I'm going to set these to toggle on keypad 1. And these are one-time toggles, so you can't retract them, except for a certain bug, which I'm not going to really talk about because it's not how it's supposed to work anyways. So once these are extended, these are good to go, and they will never retract again, supposedly, except if I glitch. We want a way to recharge our electrical power. So I'm going to set 4 of these right here on the side. These are just little simple solar panels. Very nice. And the next thing I want to do is add just a little fuel tank. Where's our little fuel tank? Here we go. Little fuel tank here. And I can put one of these guys, but I'm not feeling it. I want actually 2 of these radial small thrusters, and these are designed really for probes and very small landing craft like rovers and things like that. Very cool. And so now we'll begin our next stage. For next stage, we're going to need a decoupler, and I'm going to select this guy right here, which will fit nicely. From there, I will, no, that's how I would used to do, but they added this nice little adapter in the last patch there to make it look a little more stylish. Doesn't look like it's a space shuttle or anything. And I'll add 1 of these. You click here, you can drag it back up using the scroll wheel, give you a little more height to work with. And I will be adding this guy, which is our vectoring kind of medium-sized rocket engine. The alternative is this one, which gives you a little more thrust, uses more fuel, but it doesn't vector, so it's more difficult to steer in space. You have to use RCS and things like that, which I'm not going to go into in this rocket. So we don't plan on having this thing dock or anything. It's just supposed to orbit the planet Kerbin and bounce radio communication, so we're not going to bother with that. Very simple. So the next one I want is, whoa, not that one, this this decoupler. And I'm going to add 2 these size fuel tanks. And I'm going to add that larger rocket we talked about earlier. Now I'm going to set our symmetry to 4, go to structural, and I'm going to add these radial decouplers. Right about here looks good. And I want to reorganize these. So I'm going to stage there and drag them up. So this engine will fire and these will detach. Right? So the next thing I want is these solid stage boosters right here, and we want these to fire at the same time as that main thrusting engine. And just for, again, aesthetic looks, I'm going to add some of these aerodynamic cones on top. And these actually, in the current iteration of how drag works, do not improve or decrease the amount of drag on the vehicle. It actually adds mass and further drag. They're supposed to be working on that fairly soon, the next couple patches or so, but time being, these actually decrease the performance of the rocket, but they look very nice, and it's only marginal, so I always throw something like that on to keep the look fresh. Now what I will want to do is add these strut connectors here, just to brace everything together. And we want another one coming from here to here. And for some vertical stability, because this thing will rock quite a bit. Add one here. Now, I forgot to add something here, so I'm going to take this and we can actually drag this off to the side for a second. And we go over here to control. What I want to add is one of these. Is this the advanced one? Yeah. One of these advanced stabilizers. And these are old SAS systems, and they kind of perform the same role. They just require an electrical charge now of 18 a minute, which isn't very much. But these help control the roll, pitch, and yaw when the SAS is turned on, and will allow further control to your rocket. Now, that looks very good. Got all that on there. And I'll go back to aerodynamic, and what I want to do is add just a little bit of winglet action here, so when it's taken off, we have for stability. I'm going to take this rocket, go ahead and drag it back down so it doesn't start off so high. And we just want to make sure it's not touching the ground. It's not, so it's very important to make sure you don't go through the ground, because that's where it will spawn on the launch pad, and your rocket will break before it even launches. So the last part we need, which I could actually probably leave this like this. This is a fairly light rocket, and it would be fine just sitting on the ground. But we want these launch mechanisms right here. Why is it giving me such grief over that? Alright, this will work. And we'll just strap those on, and we want these, we'll just select them, to fire at the same time our rocket's launched. So this will release the rocket and it will take off, right? It has enough lift, which it will. And this is very important, critical on large rockets, because the weight will be so much that if it's sitting on the ground, it will collapse onto itself. So these kind of brace it up without it touching on the bottom and all the weight being put on one point. So one thing I forgot here, I gotta add another action group, and I'm gonna make this 0. And what we'll do here is toggle these engines with 0 so I can turn them on and off anytime I want and maneuver this rocket. Because what I'll eventually do is, once we've had our fun with it, I'm gonna deorbit it and take it back into Kerbin to crash, so we can get it out of the way. Now you can actually, if you get a rocket into orbit or whatever vehicle, you can have it terminate the mission and disappear from the game. But I like actually bringing it home. It's nicer, cleaner, more realistic. So I'm going to go ahead and save our rocket here and take it to the launch pad, and we can get underway. Oh boy. Loading is much cleaner in this last patch, by the way. Get a look at the new launch center, which matches up what the loading screen shows, or the splash screen. And we can see this is actually a pretty small rocket comparatively. I'm going to go ahead and turn the SAS on. You notice our electrical charge is draining because I put those solar panels on, so it's generating more power than it's draining right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn our rockets to full, and when I fire this first stage, this main drive rocket and the solid fuel boosters will take off. So I'm going to hit space, activate our first stage, which will release and launch. And we're off, nice and straight and stable, which looks good. Shouldn't have any heat concerns on the rocket I chose, so I got it full max for burning right now. It's accelerating very quickly. Quite proud of it. Good rule of thumb is once you hit between 550 and 600 meters per second vertical speed, you can go ahead and roll it over to about between 45 degrees on the 90 to 0. And I'll explain when we actually do that. So these solid fuel are about to burn out. We'll want to inject those once it has hit space again, and that's decreased weight. So we're losing velocity again because we don't have all that extra thrust. Yeah, that was expected though. Those boosters are really just to get us off the launch pad and through the most draining part of launch, it'll start going back up. Yep. And like I said, once we hit about 550, 600, we'll start to look to roll over. 190 going right to get us into an orbit. Because we're going straight up, I mean, it's possible to escape Kerbin gravity that way, but you're just leaving the planet at that point. We don't want that. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pitch over. Just careful. You saw me release the SAS there, but that's actually no longer a requirement because they allow you now to maneuver with the SAS on, and it's kind of like cruise control. It's like, oh, now I'll go this speed or whatever. It's kind of the same thing with pitch and angle. So it makes it a lot easier. And take a look here. Alright, so 70,000 is actually out of the atmosphere. Once you're there, you can go ahead, pitch over all the way to 0 here on the 90. And that engine just kicked out. So go ahead and activate our orbital stage. Goodbye. And we'll need to get up to about 2200 to achieve orbit. Oh, too far. Mess it all up. There's a problem with that SAS. With so light a rocket, it tends to go everywhere. So I'm going to actually cut back here because I don't want a real high orbit. And we almost have it. So I actually want to wait until I get to our apoapsis here, which is right in the middle, at 89,000 meters. So we're just letting this guy coast on up. And I'll use a little bit of acceleration here. Not too much. And we'll pitch over. We're going straight. Way more fuel than we actually need for this because I built the rocket too good. Nothing wrong with too much fuel though, unless you're paying for the project, which we're not at this point. There will be economics to pay for in the final career version though, so something to keep in mind that you're not wasting more fuel than you need. Alright, so we were at 90, so I'm going to cut here to about 50% throttle. Just watch it grow out here. Perfect. And we want to get this guy flipped. 89, 89. Off by about 400 meters. Real good. So we'll hit space again and eject. So now we just got our probe. Activate that engine. Now I'm going to accelerate that away a little bit more. Just a kiss. So we can say goodbye to that. I'm going to go ahead and hit 1, extend our communication. Look at that. We've got us a Sputnik style space probe. Satellite, as it were. Communicate back with Kerbin. Beautiful. And you'll notice it'll be impossible for us to maintain a facing towards the planet, because as we orbit, our facing isn't changing, but we are shifting around it. Kind of like the moon would, so the faces of the moon kind of change, even though it's tidally locked, I think, now. Yeah, so it's tidally locked, kind of like us, so we're not spinning or anything, but we're spinning around the planet, and as we do, our orientation is going to change, and I'll accelerate just to show you. So you see that? And now we're off to the right. So we would have to constantly be pitching to maintain that. Well, probably, yeah, we're losing power right now because we're totally eclipsed by the sun. But we flip back around here. Let's make a nice little orbit. And should see the sun momentarily. There it is. And we should be charging back up now, and we are. Beautiful. Alright, and we'll leave this guy in orbit a little while until we start getting missions to replace with better satellites and that sort of thing. Alright, so this has been Rek, and this is how you build a very simple satellite in Kerbal Space Program. Hope you guys have a great week. Bye.